So I talk to you often about the nature of the apostate church and the apostate Christians and how they behave when the Lord gives content for them to hear the gospel, for them to have an opportunity to turn from their wicked ways. And they don't want to turn from their wicked ways. And so I have something here the Lord gave me in church in order to tell you who are from the apostate churches. I hope you're listening if you are from the apostate church. I mean, you may be here watching the video, but whether you're listening or not, well, that's another issue. And this addresses that issue. This is in Ezekiel chapter 3, verse 27. And this is what the Lord said to me. But when I speak to thee, I will open thy mouth, and thou shalt say to them, Thus saith the Lord, He that hears, let him hear. And he that is disobedient, let him be disobedient, because it is an argumentative house to the point of embittering. You argue to the point of making bitterness arise. It's shameful. It's really shameful. If you only could see through my eyes what you look like and what you sound like, you might finally be ashamed. You might finally be ashamed. Because the things that you say are shameful. Do you want me to give you an example? I'll give you an example. I was just discussing this with a brother today. Many of you will come to the channel and will say something under a video where I'm judging someone, okay? A false teacher, a false prophet, and you will come along thinking you're so wise, thinking you're so smart, and you say this kind of thing. It's from Matthew. It says, judge not, right? Judge not. Let me read to you what Jesus actually said, because you think by taking that out of context that you got some sort of power in order to put someone in their place, to correct them, right? Well, first off, you're coming to a commissioned leader in the church and trying to correct them. That's inappropriate. Number two, most of you are women who are doing it over a man in the church, which is completely inappropriate. The Bible actually prohibits that. So let's have a look here. Chapter 7 of Matthew. Judge not, that you be not judged. Okay, you say, there it is. It says, don't judge or you're going to be judged. Yeah, that's to scare you who are sinning. Because if you're sinning and he says you're going to be judged, you better be afraid because you're going to be judged for your sin. But if you stop sinning and Jesus has purged you of your sin by his blood, as it says in 1 John 1:7, if we walk in the light as he is in the light, with no darkness at all, look at verse 5 to find that, we have fellowship with one another, and the blood of Jesus Christ, his Son, purges us of all sin. If we've been purged of sin, we have nothing to fear in terms of judgment. That's the truth. And so Jesus is not talking to us who have stopped sinning. And you'll know by the rest of the passage. The rest of the passage is all about you who say that you can't help but sin as long as you're in the body and you call yourself a Christian. It says, do not judge or you will be judged. He's threatening you. Who are Christians saying you can't help but sin. You will be judged. For with what judgment you judge, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured back to you. And if you're still sinning, you better be afraid. Because you can't go judging people when you have sin. And it says, let him who is without sin be the one to cast the first stone. It doesn't mean no one who's without sin. It means that all the men that were there were like you, going around acting like they were righteous, but they were still sinning. That was about you. And why do you look at the speck in your brother's, he goes on right here, and why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye, but do not consider the plank, the huge board, in your own eye? So you're trying to help your brother with his sin, which is small compared to the number of sins or amount of sin you've got in your eye. And until you get rid of that sin, you can't see clearly to help your brother. Stop sinning. This is another place where Jesus is telling you to stop sinning. And if you don't, and you try to judge your brother even in order to help him, you will be judged. And since you haven't stopped sinning, you'll be found guilty and you'll be cast into hell. Or how can you say to your brother, let me remove the speck from your eye, and look, a plank is in your own eye? Jesus says it directly right there. That you're trying to tell your brother that he's got sin, he's got to stop it, when you've got this sin that's even bigger in you. That's his point. That's why he says, judge not, that you be not judged. And what does he say next? Look very closely at that word in verse 5. He calls you something. When you have sin in your life and you're judging your brother for his sin and telling him to stop, you're trying to remove the speck from his eye. But you've got this plank in your own, and Jesus correctly judges you right here. He judges you right here. Verse 5, first word, what's it say? Hypocrite. Jesus is calling you that. You're a hypocrite because you have not stopped sinning and you're pretending to be able to help people with their sin. You're going around preaching the gospel, telling them that they can be free. Free from what? If you haven't stopped your own sin, free from what? You don't even know what you're talking about. It says, first remove the plank from your own eye. Jesus says it right there. Stop sinning. Remove it from your eye. And then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. You think that's not enough? Okay, read the next sentence. Verse 6, do not give what is holy to the dogs. Holy. The word holy means terrifyingly clean. Do not give what is terrifyingly clean to the dogs, nor cast your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn and tear you into pieces. So, as we started out here, God said, he that hears, let him hear. And he that is disobedient, let him be disobedient. Because it is an argumentative house to the point of embittering. Are you that argumentative house coming along and arguing with me when I'm trying to get you to stop sinning? I've stopped. I'll tell you point blank, I've stopped. Because I'm afraid of God. Because I love Jesus. Jesus said, if you love me, keep my commands. Why aren't you keeping his commands? Why aren't you? If you're keeping his commands, you're not sinning. But if you're sinning, you're not keeping his commands, and you don't love Jesus. So I'm telling you, love Jesus. Love Jesus. Stop sinning. May the Lord bless you as you seek him with all your heart.